Hello everyone and welcome back to yet another video. In this video today, my name is Muhamad Reyhan Savero from Electrical Engineering University of Indonesia. I will be talking about the next generation network policy challenges, all the challenges that is faced by the regulators in creating regulation for the next generation network. So let's just jump right into it. First of all, we're going to talk about the principles that exist in the global information infrastructure development. So there are four principles. First of all, is the availability and diffusion of high-speed infrastructure. Next is the growth and development of multimedia services, fair access and use of infrastructures for both customer and service providers. And lastly is the interconnection and interoperability of the infrastructures and services. And next is the services in next generation network. So here you can see that the voice, internet, video broadcasting, all these services are going into the multifunctional terminal, and these are then sent into the access network, which is going to be sent into the core network. So since these services use same network, hence network can be regulated in such a way that there is no reference to the content carried on them. Regulation of the communication sector should be undertaken by a single regulatory body. Next is the regulatory of the NGN. So here is the comparison between the past and existing network and the one that is in the NGN era. So for the past and the existing, we have three different body of regulator. First of all, the spectrum allocation body. Next is the broadcast regulator and telecommunication regulator. Whereas on the NGN era, all this spectrum allocation, broadcast and telecommunication will be all in regulated by a single body. Next is the economic regulation. So for the economic regulation, there are four aspects that needs to be considered. First of all, the competition, the interconnection, network unbundling, and incentive. So for the competition, what is a competition in economic regulation basically? So this aspect, the competition, is basically like a main tool or main drive in order to service provider develop effective access and foster innovation, investment, and consumer benefits in communication markets. And one of the type of the competition is facility-based competition. So in facility-based competition, there will be so many operators that are willing or encouraged to provide a good network to gain users, and this can be done by ramping up the development or the increase of their facility, or an upgrade basically. And next is the interconnection. So in the interconnection need to be considered in order to ensure that all customers of a service provider will have contact with all other subscribers that exist in the network. And for the network unbundling, the policy needed so that users pay at cost that is given and regulated by the economic regulation body. And lastly is the incentive. So incentive is used to provide the provider a boost to develop internet broadband networks to boost growth in broadband subscribers. Next is diffusion in next generation network. Sorry, there's a bit of a typo here. So in next generation network, there are available technologies that can be accessed. First of all is the FTTH, or the fiber to the home, 4G networks, and the 5G networks. So since the NGN requires a high bandwidth capacity, this available access technology can be used in order to accommodate the requirement. And however, these access technologies are mostly available in dense population areas, and NGN access is of course potentially divided, as we can see here in the figure that is included in this presentation. This is the infrastructure competition in France in 2007. As you can see that the fiber to home cannot actually the fiber to the home, the 4G and 5G are not actually available in population areas that is not very crowded. So basically these technologies are available when there is a huge demand to make these technologies available. Next is the fiberization. So in fiberization, investment incentive is a decision to invest in the communication sector that is affected by the state of competition in the market and regulatory framework. And to provide access to right-of-way, ducts, and poles, there are several things that we can, the regulators can do. First of all is reducing barriers. So reducing barrier for the municipal authorization and ensuring on duct investment, such as for the minimum maintenance of the facility. Next is the NGN interconnection. So in NGN interconnection, there are two different types of network that needs to be interconnected. First of all is the switch network. Switch network is like our public phone network, and the other one is the IP-based network. So in switch network, operator where phone calls are from pays to the operator where phone calls are end, or the destination. And whereas on the IP-based network, it is like a peering exchange packet and paid peering exchange packet of third parties. And interconnection scheme uses commonly long-run incremental cost models. Next is the NGN numbering, naming, and addressing. So there will be a difference when we start to use the next generation network. We will not use the way of numbering and addressing that we use as we are using it in the, like, say, a public phone network. So we usually have like 0812 blah 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 blah, whereas on the next generation network there will be a different kind of structure to the addressing. So in PSTN, a telephone number is actually the key resource, whereas on the IP base, the domain names and IP address are the key resources. So to exchange the telephone number and IP-based addressing, ITU, or the International Telecommunication Union, has recommendation with the E164 number to Universal Resource Identifier called Session Initiation Protocol, or the SIP. And for example, the change that will happen in this network is that, as I have said, when we usually have like 0812 blah 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 blah, the 0812 will not be necessary, since it only identifies the or the service provider or the country or the region, whereas on the NGN we will use like an email. So we use the identifier or the last digits in our number, and it will be added with the the domain name. The domain name is basically like the providers. So say we use Telkomsel, so like 1234@telkomsel.com, maybe. It's something kind of like that. Okay, next is the USO, or the Universal Service Obligation. So the Universal Service Obligation, or USO, means that operator provides a minimum set of services, which includes like voice telephone services and other type of services, to all users regardless of their geographical location within the nation or territory, at an affordable price, and even though there may be a significant differences in the cost of supply. So say the USO in Canada, there will be a discount for internet access for school and libraries. USO in Canada and Australia provide subsidies for internet access in remote areas. In Switzerland, the maximum price of €50 at remote areas. And in Indonesia, the USO is managed by the Bakti. It's actually like an abbreviation. So the Bakti is for conducting telecommunication services in remote area, like in the one in the islands that doesn't have a lot of facilities. And so basically, like, the USO here is like the CSR of a company, like the community service responsibility, if I'm not mistaken. It's like a program where a company needs to give back to the community. Next is the efficient spectrum management. There are two types of spectrum here, according to the government perspective. There are the licensed and unlicensed, and many applications such as the HDTV, broadband, and wireless, they utilize a wide spectrum bandwidth. And flexible spectrum assignment is demanded to improve economic efficiency in spectrum markets and boost innovation. And that will be all for my presentation. I hope you guys can take the information that is provided in the presentation, and I am apologizing for any confusion in my presentation, and I will see you guys on the next one.